Hello everybody, welcome to the Fabulous Picture Show and this special screening of Budrus. Can we please welcome the filmmaker here? This is Julia Bacha. I'm going to sound terribly biased. I love this film.
I'm glad.
It's certainly another look at the Middle East.
Yes, it is. This is about one Palestinian village, but it really symbolizes what is possible in the region today if people come together and believe that they have a role to play in changing their futures. So hopefully after the screening we can talk more about how people can get involved, because we are trying to build a movement out of it.
When the Israelis began building a separation barrier that would surround the tiny Palestinian town of Budrus, cutting it off from the rest of the West Bank and uprooting 30,000 trees in the process, residents were incensed. None more so than former Fatah activist turned community organizer Ayad Marah.
لازم تقيم مخك التقليدي وتشتغل بشكل منظم.
He unites feuding Palestinian factions, Fatah and Hamas, and wins the hearts and minds of hundreds of international observers and Israeli activists. As the marches gain momentum, the military gains muscle. But when Ayad's daughter decides to follow in her father's footsteps, it's the local women that begin to tip the balance. With Budrus, director Julia Bacha shows that politics plus peace, multiplied by the power of the media, can be an elegant equation for conflict resolution.
We stop here. We stop. We can't do it.
I don't think I've seen many films that have managed to evolve in that way, where you're sitting there every sort of 15 minutes and going, who else are they going to bring? Are we going to see Netanyahu next standing there, you know, holding the hands with Hamas? You must have been sitting there and going, I can't believe I found this footage. This is a very special film in that sense. But the women, I think, was an incredibly important part of that.
Iltisam, you know, she was 15 years old at the time. And she stands up to her dad and she says, they're not going to do it. Just the men, they're not going to do it. So I'm going to have to organize the women. And it's a testament to Ayad's open-mindedness that he says, you go, girl.
We saw the men trying to push the soldiers and none of them could do that. But I think the girls could do it.
But one of the most powerful things, I think, in the film is the contribution of Yasmin Levy. The fact that you have an Israeli border police woman talking about what happened and the level of sort of psychological warfare that is used against her, I thought she was incredibly candid.
בתור בחורה מאוד קשה להתמודד עם זה, במיוחד שיש הרבה נשים.
Because she had left the border police, it was easier for her to talk to us. She didn't need the official approval of the Israeli army. She does represent, I think, a sort of standard response to what she did, which is that I did what I was told to do.
פשוט מאוד כמו רובוטים. אמרו לנו פה עובר הדווי, צריך להזיז מפה את האנשים, וזה מה שעשינו.
I'm a Jewish person who spent time in the peace movement in Israel and out on the West Bank. I want to congratulate you on your film because I think it gives a very accurate portrayal of what is happening on the front line. One response that I wasn't expecting when I watched the film, apart from being sympathetic to the Palestinian people, I also found myself being quite sorry for the Israeli soldiers, in the sense that here are these young kids being brutalised at such a young age. And I wondered, when you were cutting the film, was that in your mind to show that, in fact, that they're all losers out there?
Yes, absolutely. I think that what's happening on the ground is you have young Palestinians versus young Israelis and old people making decisions and putting these people on the line of fire. Their understanding of who the other is that they are the enemy and that they are out there to get you, and that if they win, you lose. And I think what's special about what happened in this village, and it's happening in many other places in the West Bank, is that this model is not working anymore. People get there, say Israelis who are demonstrating together with Palestinians, and they realize that there is actually a way for both sides to win. And it kind of challenges you to look at it from a completely different perspective.
أنتم مدعوون لمسيرة سلمية يتضامن معكم العشرات من إخوتكم الإسرائيليين. نقول لهم نحن لسنا ضد أحد إنما نحن ضد الاحتلال.
I'd like to know how many Israelis you think are involved.
It's hard to really provide a number in terms of how many Israelis are involved, especially because there's different degrees of involvement. Obviously, what we showed in the film is the very kind of the ultimate hardcore activism, that where you actually go there and you stand in front of the bulldozer together with the Palestinians. But there are Israelis who get involved in other arenas, especially using their skills and their professions. If you really count all of those levels of involvement, you really have thousands and thousands of people who are doing this. It's still a minority, but it is growing.
I didn't really thought that in one day I will have an Israeli friend, or even I will talk to Israeli women. And not all of them is soldiers. Like, they don't really hate us.
But you are dividing people. Not everybody wants to see this message of hope.
Yeah, I think that a message of uniting people can be seen as very controversial, because depending on what the goals are of that unity, and if they don't reflect your own vision for how you want to see this situation solved, it can cause a lot of discomfort, because it really puts you in a place of having to reject the notion that there is a way for people to come around a common goal.
When we start struggling in Budrus, we didn't imagine that we can find this number from friends, Israeli friends, to come to support us.
It's a completely different story from the one we're used to coming from this area. How can people follow this story and find out what's really happening on the ground?
Thank you. Did someone plant you here to ask me these beautiful questions? It's all available online, right? If you go on YouTube and you Google any of the name of these villages, and I encourage you to do so, Budrus, Belain, Nilin, Nabisale, Sheikh Jarrah, you're going to find hundreds, thousands of videos about what's happening. But nobody's seeing these materials because they don't make it to the breaking news. That's where documentary filmmakers come in, and that's what people are saying so much, you know?
I keep thinking, wouldn't you love the nightly news to start with that vision of tonight, Palestinian women protect Israeli activists? You just don't see that on the news. I thought one of the great questions that your film asked was the role of the media in representing the conflict, in representing solutions in a different way.
Absolutely. I just actually came back from Jerusalem, and we had our first screening in Budrus, in the village of the film. And there were over 500 people of all ages, of all political parties. Afterwards, the leaders from the different villages that are currently using the model that Budrus used came to the stage and did this incredible statement about unity and about what are the next steps for us. And the energy that I felt in that moment and the optimism, I only wished that I could have shared it on the breaking news with like, this is what's coming next. Let's help this happen.
Julia's had, as a woman, has had a fantastic sort of filmmaking partnership also with Jihan. They worked together first on Control Room. What has this film meant to you guys?
I worry about its release in the States. When Control Room first came out, a lot of people thought it was propaganda. And it wasn't until the New York Times came out with a piece that said that the film was an important film for people to see that journalists kind of followed suit. And I think that when this film comes out, it's going to come out to a lot of criticism because people have not seen these images before. This is a hopeful story, and it's during a time when people aren't seeing much hope.
It's so courageous what these people are doing, Palestinians and Israelis and internationals. I'm a very privileged person that I can do a little bit through making films. And so I feel that there is nothing better that I could be doing with my life right now.
I think certainly this film, I think that it makes all of us feel like we can engage in this. And if that just means even scrutinizing the media somewhat more, that's engagement. But I thank you so much for coming, Julia. Thank you all for your fantastic questions and hope to see you again.
יש לכם בדיוק 10 דקות לא להיות פה, תכף מגיע צו שטח צבאי סגור, אנחנו עוצרים את כולם. לא יורים, לא בורחים, מסרבים להיות רוצחים.
Well, that's it for this Fabulous Picture Show. Julia, next.
We're going to be following the villages that are using the model of resistance that Budrus started and hoping that they're going to gain a lot of momentum.
If you want to get engaged, you can follow this website, and we hope to see you on the next Fabulous Picture Show. Take care.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this film and why?
I'd probably give it an 8.5.
You get to see a different side of how people are battling oppression in their countries.
I think it should be made compulsory watching for all young adults living in conflict areas.
It was a very powerful film with a very powerful message, and I would definitely recommend all my friends to come and see.